Welcome to OkState Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. We are back, and we are super excited to bring in another football season for 2024 as we bring in co-host Scott McKinley.
Hey guys, glad to be back. It's been a long, hot summer as they typically are in Oklahoma, but I'm always ready for football season. That means cooler weather's on the way, and let's strap on the pads and let's go.
Football season means that you're getting ready to get your officiating season started on the gridiron. I'm sure you're excited about that.
Yeah. So I'll be starting Friday night, and it's pretty much, because obviously my crew will probably get some playoff assignments as well. It is nonstop for about 13, 14 weeks, seems like. So, but I love every minute of it.
Okay, let's talk about the season opener on Saturday. The home opener, it's going to be a sellout at Boone Pickens Stadium. Should be good weather. A great opponent. The FCS 1AA national champions from last year. Their head coach has not lost a game. They have a quarterback that comes back with almost a 180 quarterback rating. They have great experience and a roster full of players that don't know anything other than winning. So it should be an exciting, fun, very good challenge for a first game.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned, the experience that they have. I mean, this is a program that has won at a very high level for a very long time. In fact, I read a report that their head coach has not lost a game since he's been there. He was their new head coach, I believe it was last year. So they have not lost a game. I actually watched that national championship game last year. It was a good ball game. But, I think the thing I look at from an OSU perspective is this is a team where even if OSU were to get up a couple of scores, this team is mature enough that they're not going to lay down. They're not going to quit. So I think OSU is going to have their hands full Saturday, and they're going to have to continue playing late in the third and the fourth quarter to hopefully close it out with a victory.
One thing I really do like about this game that's set up, as good as South Dakota State is, I do think Oklahoma State, they will have OSU's attention. They are a great team. They don't lose. It's an FCS 1AA team, yes, but again, it's a national championship type team. Montana State beat a Division I team. I know it was New Mexico last week. But this is a game where they will get Oklahoma State's best effort, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing I look at is you got to believe that in the spring and all through the summer workouts that they've had this game circled. So not only do you have mature players that are very well coached, but they've had a lot of time to look at film. I guarantee you they're going to come in with a good game plan. I think from an Oklahoma State perspective, I think the thing that we hope for is that the caliber of our athlete is just better. That's kind of the hope. But at the same time, you look on the opposite side, OSU is very veteran. We've got a lot of experience on this team as well. So my hope is that the maturity on OSU, that they're not going to take this game lightly, and that hopefully our overall talent will then take over. But I tell you what, the other thing that you go into a game like this that could totally change it is turnovers. If OSU goes and they put the ball on the turf, and all of a sudden, they're good enough to beat you. So
I think also being the home opener and going to be a beautiful day. Boone Pickens is a beautiful place to play. I think, they've been hearing about this season all off season. So I think this Oklahoma State team, Mike Gundy, he's great at these types of situations. I think they're going to come out very motivated, very ready to play. And I think Oklahoma State they have better players on the top end and then more players as far as depth goes.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've looked at with not to look back, but like with Spencer Sanders, I always looked at if he ever figured out that there are worse things than an incomplete pass, that can make a huge difference. Because here's the truth when you look at it. Not every pass that you throw is going to be a winner. Not every pass you throw is going to be a touchdown. But at the same time, as long as we avoid those massive mistakes, we've got enough playmakers on the edge. Because my question for what I'm curious to see on this particular matchup is how are the Jackrabbits going to plan for OSU? Because Ollie Gordon's obviously a big threat, but OSU's got an awful lot of talent on the perimeter as well between Presley, Owens. They've got a good receiving core. Yeah, exactly. So it's not like I really don't think that the Jackrabbits are going to be able to come in and say, all right, yeah, we're going to shut down Ollie Gordon, which that's a tall task in and of itself. they're gonna have to kind of pick their poison. So I think the biggest thing for Alan Bowman this weekend is just play clean. If you got to dump it and get an incomplete pass, that there are worse things that can happen. We'll come back and we'll play 2nd and 10.
I think one of the things Oklahoma State can do, we talk about they're going to have more depth. It's a Division I program. They're going to have more players that are available to them that are of high quality and high caliber. I think it would behoove the Cowboys to play fast, make South Dakota State play as many plays as they possibly have to, wear them down from that perspective. So by about the 3rd or 4th quarter, you've really worn them down with your depth. So make the South Dakota State defense play maybe 90, 95, above 90 plays in the game. I think that would be to the advantage of Oklahoma State.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of coaches say, control the tempo, control the clock, possession, good, solid, methodical drives. I think that's kind of what we're looking for. Of course, at the same time, if you see coach sees an opportunity and we can get a quick strike, you got to take that too. But to your point, I agree. I think I do think that the Jackrabbits are going to come out early in the first half, and they're going to be competitive. My hope is that depth and that conditioning and that overall talent level starts to take over for OSU, hopefully in the 3rd and possibly 4th quarters.
So this Oklahoma State team with all the returners has been getting a lot of publicity in the offseason. It just seems like when Oklahoma State, in seasons where they have a lot of publicity like this, something always goes wrong. I'm not sure as great of running backs as Oklahoma State has had throughout its history. You go back through all the NFL running backs Mike Gundy's had, then obviously the Thurman Thomases, the Barry Sanders. There's been Hall of Fame running backs, but I'm not sure any one running back has had this much hype coming into the season. Are you worried about that maybe playing a factor as far as getting into the heads of the players and just too much hype?
I think it's something that's always in the back of your mind. But the other thing I also look at is the way that Ollie Gordon plays the game. He plays 100% all day, all the time. He's not one. I'll put it this way: I've never seen Ollie shy away from a hit. Which is concerning on the long term thing, because obviously we need him healthy throughout the season. But from from that standpoint, just the way that he plays the game, I think he's going to come out and he's going to run hard. That's just the way that he's built. That's his mindset with the way he approaches the game.
A lot of talk, and rightfully so, centers around Alan Bowman coming back at quarterback, Ollie Gordon, the great receivers, the entire offensive line. But I'll tell you what, there are some really nice pieces coming back on defense. Kendall Daniels moves down to linebacker. Colin Oliver returns. Nick Martin. Then you have Corey Black on the outside. So a lot of really good names coming back. So this defense under Brian Nardo, I think if you follow OkState Daily at all, you know how much I like Coach Nardo and the way he puts the puzzle together. So this defense has a lot to like to and a lot to be excited about.
You mentioned a number of the key pieces. Obviously, this defense has got talent. I mean, there's not, Yeah. I mean, this team has got some talent. I think the biggest thing that I would like to see from this defense this year is, because I agree with everything you just said about Nardo. I think it's the busts that we've got to cut down on. It's like we had the right scheme, we had the right plan, we're making the right adjustment. Yeah. I mean, it's so literally. I think that's literally just the deal. Because I've noticed that several times last year where you could see the adjustments that we're making, the things that we're calling the right plays. But if you think we're in cover one and and we're supposed to be in cover three, okay, well that's all of a sudden they hit you, So I think that's the biggest thing I look at is just don't have any busts. Because the other thing I look at is, we're going back to the play, the number of plays and everything. It's weird. The more plays that your defense is on the field, okay, we don't like that from a standpoint of the endurance standpoint. But at the same time, okay, if they're having to take 14, 15 plays to score as opposed to just hitting you on two, well, there's more chances for a turnover. You might get a fumble, they might get a stalling drive, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a catch-22 on that. We don't like it in one way, but another way, okay, just cut down on the bus. I really think if we will do that, we're going to have success on Saturday. We're going to have success this season.
Of course, this is the first year that Oklahoma and Texas will not be in the league. I actually am excited about the fact that we have moved on from under the shadow of OU. But hey, this is a conference you brought in last year, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. This year you bring in Utah, Colorado, and both Arizona schools. Where are you at with what the conference looks like?
I think I think Yormark's had a very interesting strategy. Because I think one of the biggest strategies, and I think it's working, is when you look at the footprint of the Big 12. I mean, it's literally coast to coast now. Where there's literally going to be Big 12 games going on all day. So literally, yeah. So I mean, so that I think has been good. I think the other thing that the Big 12 is looking at is strength in numbers. Because if you have a conference, because we all know this thing's not done. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this is just almost every 2 to 3 years we see more and more changes happening. But the thing is, if you've got enough teams, let's say that we go 2-3 years from now and 2 teams want to leave to go somewhere else. Well, you still got enough teams in there that you've still got a strong conference. You can bring somebody in. So no, I think it's been a great. I think he's done a fantastic job. I go back to a couple of years ago where we thought the Big 12. Was dead. There was talk that OSU and Tech and Baylor and all those other teams would go by the. Yeah, they would be absorbed by the Pac-12. Yeah, exactly. So no, I think it's a very interesting strategy. I think what I'm curious to see this year, particularly with football, is outside of bowl games and maybe a couple of marquee non-conference matchups, we don't really get a huge sense of, as much as we try to say, well, this conference is better than this conference and that kind of thing. You only get a handful of games to really see conference versus conference, and then it comes down to individual matchups and those kind of things. So I think it's, all the prognosticators are saying, well, this team's going to do great, in the Big 12 this year. I really don't know, because I don't. Okay, yeah, Utah's had sustained success. Colorado is definitely if there ever was a wild card, Colorado's got to be it, just because of Dion and all the things that are going on there. So I think this year, anybody that says that they know how this thing's going to go, they're lying to you. Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very competitive. I'll be honest with you. I'm really glad that we've got a couple of those teams like Utah and West Virginia. I'm glad we got them at home. We're not having to go on the road for that. I'll be honest with you, that Colorado game scares me just because it's a hostile environment. It's a Friday night. It's towards the end of the season. That one, I've got that one circled. But yeah, it's like Iowa State too. So I know I hate bringing it up, but it's just one of those things. But no, I mean, if you're just a fan of college football, I think the Big 12 is going to be an absolute blast to watch. I think from an OSU fan perspective, I'm excited this year because there's not. I mean, yes, okay, there's prognosticators that have this team as a favorite, this team is a favorite. I think this thing's wide open. Another interesting thing, kind of looking even bigger picture that I've been looking at is playoffs. In years past, just from an OSU perspective, I was always against scheduling difficult non-conference games because, let's be honest, as OSU in the past, if we took a loss, we're pretty much out of it. Exactly. Well, but you look at this year. So let's say that somewhere we slip up. Let's say we lose to Arkansas. We're still right back in the thick of that. You're not out of the playoffs in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I could see a scenario where a team with even 2 or 3 losses, with the way that the format is that, if depends on who they lose to, that kind of deal. I could see a team where 2 and 3 losses still gets into the playoffs. So I think that's going to continue to it's going to generate interest for a number of teams throughout the season. That you're not, just because you lost one game in the non-con doesn't mean that you're out of it.
Mike Gundy's definitely a coach that thinks ahead. He analyzes. He thinks about all the things in the future. I definitely think when he saw this non-con schedule 2, 3, maybe 4 years ago, I think he has planned in his recruiting to make this year especially a veteran caliber team to be able to handle this non-con. So I think, of course, you get lucky that all the guys come back, starting with your running back, Ollie Gordon, and then your entire offensive line and Alan Bowman. You got lucky there, Brennan Presley. But still, I do think that Mike Gundy started planning a couple of years ago to make this year in specific a very veteran team.
Yeah, no, he made some comments a while back about some of the difficult schedule. We got Alabama coming up here in a couple of years, that kind of deal. Of course, I am glad Nick Saban's not going to be coaching at that game. But no, to your point, I think if there was a year that we needed to have an experienced team, this would be it. You got a lot of changes. You got a lot of, between the playoffs, between the new opponents that we'd never seen before, or we haven't seen them in a long time. I think there's being able to keep a team focused. I think if there ever was a year we needed to have an experienced team, this was definitely it.
I think one of the things that's going to make this conference so competitive is that I don't think there's going to be a dominant OU in Texas. It's going to be a bunch of teams that are very similar, that in any given year, 4 or 5 different teams could come up to the front. So it's going to create a extremely entertaining competitive balance.
Yeah. I think one of the things that will breed new rivalries is you have competitive games. And I think that those two teams are going to be pretty competitive for a long time. I actually had a chance to go out. I was in Utah about a year or so ago and got to drive by the stadium and everything. They've built a very nice facility. It's kind of the backdrop of the mountains. Utah is definitely an up and coming program for sure.
Okay, man, let's get back to the game. Expectation this season. What are your expectations for 2024? What would make you happy? What would make you walk away from this season feeling like it was somewhat of a disappointment?
I think I will be disappointed. And I'm going to set the bar fairly high. I'd be disappointed if we did not make it back to the conference championship game. I think we have the team to do that. But again, all those, the schedule I think is there. But at the same time, it is very difficult to win every single game on your schedule. That's trying to be realistic here. So I think what I'd like to see us do is I think we can navigate. There's probably going to be a trip up somewhere. Like I said, we've got some tough road games. Going to Manhattan, Kansas is not easy. K-State's going to have a good ball club. Utah is not going to be an easy game. As you mentioned, we for whatever reason, we struggle going to TCU. So it's very likely we're going to be tripped up somewhere. Just don't know where. But I think even with that, we still have the team to make it back to the conference championship game. But at the same time, I think the other key for us this year is, and it is true at every single year, is overall health of the team. Again, it's nice. We do have some depth this year. I think more than we've had in previous seasons, but at the same time, we've got some pretty key components out there that we need those guys healthy.